we saw the women's 5K tonight. One athlete, well, only a handful of athletes ran faster for their 5,000 meters than these women are attempting to do in back-to-back 5K races. Emily Infeld probably on the line here with one of the highest pedigrees of any American 10,000 meter runner, owning to her name a bronze medal at a world championship. 31:08, I believe, is her personal best. But Emily knows that, I've heard about her workouts. I know that she's fit. She knows that she's fit. But there's a lot of laps out here to run, and great on Lucia Stafford to come and step on the track and help her out. We'll see how far Lucia can go. And Emily's a grinder, but also some of the interesting storylines that I feel like we have in this race that we haven't talked about for a long time in the track scene. Jess McClain, I've known her for years as Jess Ton, so hard to change that in my brain. I'm old and stupid. But Jess McClain, after an amazing fourth place finish at the marathon trials, has swapped out her super shoes for super spikes and is giving her go at an Olympic trials qualifier.
And she's here at the top of your screen right there. So we have Emily Infeld on the heels of Lucia Stafford and then Jess McClain. I do believe that Kira Diamato is in this race as well. She ran 31:07 at the 10.
Yeah, we'll see here as the results populate the runners on the track. It was hard to catch a glimpse of who was on the starting line versus who may have not made it here this week. But for athletes like Kira has the Olympic trials qualifying time. She ran 31:0 at the 10. This would have been a great opportunity for her to come out and try and get that Olympic qualifying time. But, these 10Ks are so hard to bounce back from. I think there's a lot of hesitance on the part of the ladies, men and women, to go run an all-out 10K 6 weeks out from the trials. But if you have no other choice, where else are you going to run?
There aren't a lot of options in the scene for the 10,000 meters. We have the Night of 1,000 PBs coming up next week in Great Britain if you want to book a flight over there, over across the pond. Stateside, we've got the 10, and we've got this race happening right in front of your eyes. So we'll see what the pace is as they come up to 2 laps here.
I think that we've had a uniform or a bib malfunction here with Emily Infeld. We'll have to keep close track on her splits because it does look like her bib may have fallen off, which I think has a tracking device in it. But obviously close on her heels is Jess McClain, who right now they're running clockwork 77s.
2:33 through 800 meters.
Yeah, so Lucia Stafford up front doing the work. Emily right on her heels, turning her brain off, going to work. It appears as though we do not have Ellie Hennis. We do not have Kira D'Amato, a couple of athletes that would have been useful in the later parts of the race for the likes of Jess McClain, for the likes of Emily Infeld. Strong athletes to keep the pace going. But I don't have any doubt in my mind that Emily's capable of getting the best out of herself all alone.
Infeld's one of the toughest runners on the scene. You've seen that time and time again. She's had injuries that she's dealt with throughout her career, but every time she comes back, and it doesn't take her a whole lot of time to get back into tip-top shape and be back into racing form. So she is hugging Lucia Stafford right now up in that first position. She also does not have the U.S. Olympic trials standard currently, so she needs this race in order to get to the line there in Eugene.
Right, you are. Also, again, because of the vantage point that we're sitting at in the box up here, I did not recognize that the meet organizers have allowed the fans down onto the track. So out and about lane 5 now, we've got the fans have cleared out of the bleachers and they're standing trackside cheering on these women as they attempt this grueling feat of 25 laps of Jack Kemp Stadium. Up front, Lucia Stafford setting the pace. Emily Infeld right behind her. Jess McClain hot on her heels. Katrina Coogan. Great to see Katrina running well in the early stages of this race. Daughter of U.S. Olympian Mark Coogan. Trains out of the New Balance Boston group. Fantastic to see her running well and confidently here.
I am excited to see what Jess McClain is going to do in this race as well, sitting in that 3rd position, because she had an outstanding Olympic trials, 4th place finish in the marathon down in Orlando and bided her time, worked her way up through the field in a very strategic race where a lot of athletes went out in the heat and blew up and fell apart, but she just worked her way through the carnage throughout the race and had an amazing finish. And she did it her own way, too, training by herself. I shouldn't say that. She's got teammates down there in Arizona, but not with a traditional team setup. So
working a full-time marketing job and getting the running in around that, and being newly married, obviously, as we noted earlier, her maiden name Ton, her married name McClain. And honestly, it's a full circle story, right? Jess, when she came out of college, graduating from Stanford, joined the Brooks Beasts. Her first stint in professional running, I think, I don't want to speak for her, but I would offer didn't go as well as she would have hoped, and sort of decided to hang up her shoes, as it were, and pursue a career outside of track. But the love of running was so strong within her that she just kept going, and found herself the best 10K of her race at the trials was the last 10K. All she had to do was run 20 miles before that. So I wonder if she's done 20 earlier today before stepping on the track. Nice little warm-up.
Maybe. So through lap 6 there, 2K covered for 10,000 meters, 8K to go.
Yeah, they're back down.
Through lap 5, 75-second pace.
Lucia's done a great job of, I think they got out a little bit conservatively of establishing the pace, running 66, 67. The last 3 laps all being 76, 77. The last 3 laps all being in the 74 range. And so they're right on schedule to come through a fast first 5K, which hopefully gives them the confidence and energy that they need to propel themselves the last 12 and a half laps.
And the order is unchanged, and I think we're going to see that for a while now because there's no reason for any of these athletes to make any moves this early on. At this point, you just want to go to sleep, as they say, follow the rabbit, and waste as little energy as possible getting through this first, 9,500 meters, maybe.
Do no more than you have to until you have to do a little more than that.
Well put.
And the DJ here spinning fire tracks, if you guys can't hear it on our broadcast, but doing a great job, again, just trying to provide that little extra amount of energy, those little 1%ers that the athletes need to go from good to great.
So Stafford, Infeld, Ton, Coogan, and then Holly Campbell.
Maggie Montoya, followed by Sanjivani Jadhav of India. That rounds out this lead group of women, the 10,000 meters.
So rolling around here, last opportunity, not the last opportunity. There will be a few other 10,000 meters this season, but this is a big deal to get this standard, both U.S. Olympic trial standards and a shot at the Olympic standard. World rankings are definitely going to come into play, I feel, for the U.S. team this year, having only 2 athletes that have notched their qualifiers so far. We will see how that shakes out because it's variable as you move up. They'll fill the fields, and then we'll see how many athletes are remaining.
For years, right, we took it for granted, I think, that the U.S. was getting 3 men and 3 women at the start line of the 10K. Because oftentimes what we would see is at the major championships, the World Championships, the Olympic Games, our athletes being dropped. Emily was probably the last, and Elise Cranny at the last World Championships finishing in the top 10. But Emily was our last that was in any sort of medal contention, along with Molly Huddle.
Right.
But as World Athletics goes more towards this ranking-based system by driving these standards to be so difficult, it's it's really interesting to see, well, are we going to get a full U.S. team? I mean, we just saw the potential this week. I don't know if that will be reversed, of us for the first time in I can't remember how long, not having 3 men at the start line of the marathon and the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And so as this sport changes ever so slightly to those who have an eagle eye to what the rules are, it's challenging a lot of the things that we took for granted.
Yeah, and we see, 2 miles covered here in roughly 10:03, 10:04. So slightly off the pace now for that 30-40.
And if that's out the window, that there's another opportunity at the Olympic trials.
Absolutely. And we see some shuffling of the pack, too, as Infeld goes to the back, and it looks like she's saying something to somebody on the outside of the track there, maybe a coach. But Holly Campbell now up front.
What we're seeing now, guys, is the chase pack we have a lead group of about 6 or 7 up front, and it's nice to see a second pack coalescing, working together, knowing that the strength that exists in numbers. But again, Lucia Stafford still doing a great job driving this train up front, running those 75s for this group, continuing to show them in the absence of a wave light what the pace they need to run is.
Yeah, that's Stafford up front, and then Holly Campbell behind her, and then Maggie Montoya. And Jess McClain still there. And Katrina Coogan.
It appears as though, unfortunately, Emily Infeld has stepped off the track. Tonight was not her night.
That's tough to see.
It's tough to see. One of the best in the U.S. Such is the nature of sport. It's cruel.
But we still have athletes up here in the front. Holly Campbell on pace.
Thanks for keeping it positive, Jeff.
We wish the best for Emily Infeld here. We hope everything's okay. Stafford still at the front, pushing the pace. This is a huge effort by Lucia Stafford helping these women out. And she's moving out to the second lane now. Holly Campbell now taking command of this race with Maggie Montoya on her outside shoulder. And Jess McClain in there in the pack. We'll see what she can do after her amazing performance in the Olympic Trials Marathon. So Montoya now takes the front.
Maggie Montoya, I love her running style. Maggie is an awesome woman. She lives in Boulder, Colorado. I've gotten to spend some fun time with Maggie, but she's got this shoulder roll that I think is it's so fun to watch. A little bit emblematic of a young Bernard Lagat. Bernard was a little more bouncy left and right, but Maggie's got this shoulder roll. It's so smooth. It's so slick, and she's taking control of this 10K now. Maggie may be known more for her prowess on the roads, inserting herself over the last 6K of this 10,000 meters, obviously feeling pretty strong.
76 seconds for that last lap 10, as they cruise around again, getting around the steeple pit here, Jack Kemp Stadium.
Jess McClain still very much in the mix here. This group of 5, I do feel like the 10K sort of has this roller coaster of emotions, not unlike a marathon, where you have good patches and bad patches, and it's going to take the strength of all of 5 of these women to produce something special in terms of finishing times. Great to see, as I've said before, Katrina Coogan in there running very strong. Jess McClain, and it looks like this is Seema from India rounding out that top 5.
So if we look at each of these segments of the 10,000 meters, we have Lucia Stafford taking the first part through about 10 laps there. And now this is Maggie Montoya's chapter, looking at the splits as chapters of a race. Each split that rolls out here is attributed to the athlete that's pushing the pace and making that move. So now this is all up to Maggie Montoya at the front. These athletes behind her are counting on her to write this chapter and take them to where they need to go, and hope that they can follow along as well. But Montoya clicking off 75 for that last lap, for lap 11.
And hopefully this chapter isn't too juicy. You don't want too much to happen in the novel too early. No, Maggie keeping the storyline going here. If we want to keep on with this metaphor, you know, we're watching characters develop in front of our eyes as Maggie continues on with this metronomic pace. It's always impressive for me to watch athletes who can just, you know, click off laps within tenths of a second of each other. They've found the rhythm, and now they just got to hold it.
And the pack is being whittled down throughout this race, too. Now we're down to 4. So we have Maggie Montoya, Holly Campbell,
Katrina Coogan,
and Jess McClain. That's your 4 right now. And likely the winner will come from that foursome, barring some sort of catastrophe or amazing result from the second pack.
You know, we're not too far from Nakatomi Plaza here. If you remember, John McClain's wife, Holly DeGeneiro. We got a Holly and we got a McClain. We got Die Hard written all over it. We'll see how this one plays out. If it's anything like the movie, we got a banger of an ending.
Yeah, this is an action-packed show we're watching here. 4 women duking it out in this 10,000 meters. Well, at some point they're going to start duking it out together. But right now they're working together.
This seems the 10K sort of seems like it's like the heavyweight fight. You know, we're just exchanging body blows for a while here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to beat down the beast until you start going for those knockout punches. And right now it's just the athletes. Maggie Montoya delivering body blows to the other 3 women in the front of this pack.
Another 76 for Maggie Montoya through lap 13. And Coogan now moves up into second as Holly Campbell, the Australian, moves into that 3rd position. And then Jess McClain sitting in that 4th position, very comfortable there. Doesn't need to make a move at all right now. She might have to think about it if there starts to be a gap growing. But right now, everybody still in line, moving around this track nicely.
So in terms of trying to solidify Olympic trial qualifying times, the Olympic trials qualifying time in this event is 31:30. By my calculations, the front group of women came through 5K in about 15:45-ish. So we do not have a lot of wiggle room here for these women. They got to stay on this 75, 76 second pace. They can't run 77s unless they know that they're going to need to claw it back over the final laps. But you know, you hope that the effort is such that you know just stay on it a little bit more every lap. Don't let that trials time get out of reach.
And we're going to keep you here with the action, but we're going to bring in a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back to you shortly.
The process of you train so hard for something and then getting the results that you want, I think that's kind of the addictive feeling of competing and being an athlete. I think that's what I love so much. Okay. Yeah. I got into running when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I'm probably going to be honest and say I probably didn't really like it that much. I just liked the feeling of winning and being competitive. I think I thrive in the competitive environments with rivalries and just everyone running to be the best in that race. I think that's what I actually really enjoy. I just used to drink water, and sometimes thinking back, I'd probably feel quite empty after a session or even during. And I'd always obviously survive and get through it, but I think with the drinks now, using them all the time, it feels like you kind of got a bit more energy. And like I say, I feel lost about them now. Like there's not one session I don't use it for. I'd always heard horror stories about bicarb, people getting it wrong. So I was a bit, oh, what if it does that to me? But I think the more and I've got it quite figured out, and I've never had a problem with it. So, and it's worked quite well. I've run some of my best races this year using it. Now, but definitely over the last couple of years in the past for me, leading up to a race, like because I'm used to training so hard all the time, like hitting a certain amount of miles a week, doing certain amount of sessions. When I see it get lighter, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely losing fitness right now. I've gone through the cycle so many times now, I just kind of trust the process. But definitely the hardest thing for an athlete to do is to say no. And that's one of the biggest things, because you always want to push, you always want to find an extra percent. And I think something I've learned is actually resting is just as important.
Okay, we're back at the action here in the 10,000 meters, and Katrina Coogan is at the front now. We've lost Holly Campbell, who has dropped off slightly from this lead pack that is now 3. And it is the 3 Americans, Katrina Coogan, Maggie Montoya, and Jess McClain. Jess McClain still hanging tough there. Great to see after her Olympic trials performance. Katrina Coogan getting some daylight. And they're clicking off 77, 77, and 76 for their last 3 laps.
Jess McClain taking matters into her own hands of covering that gap between herself and Maggie, between Katrina and Maggie, sort of kickstarting Maggie to jump on the train with her. Don't lose us now. We've come this far.
Yeah, Jess McClain closing the gap here up to Katrina Coogan. And she's been sitting very comfortably this whole time, just trying to be as invisible as possible throughout this race, it seems, until she can make her move at the end. If, in fact, she's able to do that. Katrina Coogan pushing the pace right now. And it was 76. And coming up through 6,800 meters, lap 17, is another 76 for Katrina Coogan at the front. Jess McClain moving up past Maggie Montoya. She's got a 75 for that last lap.
Well, what I'm seeing from from Jess right now is a bit of antsiness. You know, I think that she's probably starting to feel pretty good because she's moving on the outs. She's on that outside leg. You can see Katrina's cycle of her back kick there inside of Jess. And so, I mean, I don't think at this point you want to be running any additional unnecessary meters, but you know, the road warrior in her is not used to having to follow long stretches of being on a turn, and so you don't want to put in any massive accelerations to pass on these short straightaways. But Jess is obviously feeling pretty good. Both of these women are still clicking off excellent splits. They're right where they need to be in that 76 zone. It's a war of attrition at this point, and again, body blows. Katrina's dealing body blows right now, and Jess is responding really well.
Yeah, this pack has been whittled down throughout the race. Now we're down to 2. Katrina Coogan and Jess McClain. Jess McClain, this is likely her first track race in a very long time. I would say that she's been on the roads for a while, stepped away from the sport for a short amount of time, and then came back with her amazing story at the Olympic trials. But now, this is a resurgence here, coming back in the 10,000 meters, potentially to notch her U.S. trials standard to jump into another Olympic trials race later this summer.
You know, there probably aren't a whole lot of people that run in both Olympic trials. It's the crazy thing of the sport. It's getting too hard, too hard to do all things, and so. You know, for Jess to be able to bounce back, you know, yes, it was early February were the trials, but training for track events is a lot different than training for road events.
Ask Safan Hassan.
I don't think she notices a difference.
This is a Safan Hassan-like performance here.
Yeah, Jess's PB in the 10,000 meters is 31:54 from Peyton Jordan in 2018. So 6 years ago.
It's been a while.
Is it? You know what? Rewrite the record books. Go get that PR tonight.
77 for that last lap for Katrina Coogan and Jess McClain. That was lap 19, 7,600 meters. Still pushing here. McClain comfortable to sit on Coogan right now, and Coogan seems to be doing fine with the work at the front as we're watching them around the 200-meter mark again. Maggie Montoya still in the picture back there, back in 3rd. and she's been clocking 78. So she slipped off the pace slightly, but not terribly.
No,
And she's hanging tough.
Katrina and Jess are not clear of Maggie Montoya. Any mental lapse at this point. Maggie's right back in this thing, but gosh, you can almost just see the focus on Katrina Coogan's face. She's an athlete who has incredible abilities, but has had a rough couple of years of racing. I think she's a 15 flat 5K runner, and has just been trying to get back into that form. And to see her out here tonight on pace to run a personal best, to notch that Olympic trials qualifier, it's great to see athletes with sort of that rebirth.
And a 77 again for Coogan and McClain, 25-26 through 8,000 meters. And 25-30 back from Maggie Montoya, so she's only 4 seconds back right now. She's still got her sights set on Jess McClain, and McClain trying to hang on to Coogan, who is making a resurgence, and this is a fantastic race for Coogan out at front. And she's got to be feeling confident right now. Well, right now it's probably hurting, but
she's feeling confident in her hurt right now. Let's put it that way.
Hopefully she's gaining confidence with every step as she's making her way around this track at Jack Kemp Stadium. And the crowd is lining the track, cheering them on right now.
The person I don't see, who I would love to have eyes on right now, is her dad and coach, Mark Coogan. I'm sure he's here somewhere. His whole team is out here racing. They just spent a month up in Flagstaff, coming down to the low altitudes, and then getting ready to go at it again next weekend over at Drake Stadium at UCLA. Katrina Coogan. This race is all Katrina and Jess McClain behind her, but for my money, Katrina Coogan looks very comfortable up front. Jess probably ever so slightly unaccustomed to these paces, but still looking very strong.
Through 8,400 meters, and that was a 76 mid.
Proving me wrong yet again. Jess McClain goes to the front.
McClain now takes the lead after a 76 mid from Coogan. So Coogan ratcheting down the pace ever so slightly, but McClain takes the lead, sensing that it's time to make a move, perhaps injecting a bit of pace into this race. We'll see what she can do now. We'll see if they're working together or if Jess McClain is trying to stretch it, but they're closer than they ever have been.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, they have a lion's task ahead of them here over these last 3 laps, because they needed their last mile to be somewhere in the 4:48 range to tick the qualifying mark for the Olympic trials. I'm sure these marks will get them in, but 4:48, not out of the realm of possibility, but it's a lot of work to do, and this is their fastest lap in a long while, with Jess McClain running a 74 on that lap.
74.9 for McClain, 75 for Coogan. And Maggie Montoya, 78 seconds. So McClain driving hard now.
I hope she has visions of the final 1 kilometer of her marathon race in Orlando that was about as flat as this here track at Jack Kemp Stadium at Occidental College. But these two girls, again, they're starting to spar. Now they're throwing in some big jabs.
McClain knows how to close. We've seen it. And Coogan is hanging tough right now. This is the best race that she's had in a long time. And both of them need to be drawing confidence from this effort out here. There's money on the line. This is a bronze level event here at the Track Fest, brought to you by Sound Running. So both of these athletes will be getting points towards their world rankings from this race as well. And McClain at the front, another 74.9, exactly the same split.
That's a
as the
marathoner
previous
for
one.
you.
Like clockwork. With 2 laps remaining. It is McClain and Coogan. They've been together the entire time.
Yeah, and Maggie's firmly in third. She doesn't have much of a race in her hand, which is a bit of a shame, because sometimes you need that competitive fire to launch you to that next level, to kick you into that next gear, because up front, Jess McClain has gone full bore into her marathon finish, and Katrina Coogan is matching her stride for stride. I remember this look from Orlando. Jess is just flying around the bend here. Katrina not giving her an inch, and in fact pulling up on her shoulder as they're lapping athletes.
Yeah, this is getting dicey around here. They go to the inside of that athlete lap, and now Coogan goes back to the front. It looked like McClain was getting a little bit of a lean going, but is there daylight? No, McClain is hanging tough. There might be a slight amount of daylight here as they head into the bell.
If I'm a track athlete like Katrina Coogan, I like my odds against the marathoner over the final 400 meters. But Jess McClain is hanging tough, gripping by tooth and nail, trying to not let Katrina get any further away than she already has. As they go down the backstretch, it's Katrina Coogan sprinting for that Olympic trials qualifying time, and Jess McClain is reeling her in.
It's Coogan, but McClain is coming right now. They're going to be drawing even with 200 meters to go, and now McClain is back to the front. But I don't think it's over for Coogan just yet. McClain rounding the bend. She's got that marathon strength, and now the gap is growing.
And that may have been the final punch in this round, in this matchup between Jess McClain and Katrina Coogan. A fantastic fight, a fantastic race as Jess McClain sprints towards the line.
So they're going to be outside of 31:30, but not by much. McClain comes to the line in 31:34, and Coogan 31:37. That is a personal best for both, knocking 20 seconds off for each of them.
What an incredible day.
And here comes Maggie Montoya coming to the line under 32. That is a 31:53.
PB for Maggie Montoya as well. About a 12-second personal best for her. That will very likely be good enough to qualify her for the Olympic trials.
A great effort there.
I don't know if Jess McClain ever wants to do that again.
You think that was tougher than
I don't think that one felt quite as good as her fourth place in Orlando.
It's at least a 20-second personal best for Jess McClain coming 19 seconds. 19 seconds for Jess McClain coming 6 years after her previous best. So I'm sure there were times when she thought, I don't know if this is going to happen again. And now 2024 here at Jack Kemp Stadium, she wins the Track Fest in 31:35.
What a day. What a day. You know, hats off to those ladies. They never fell asleep. Maggie Montoya, you know, knew what she had to do on the day and knew that it was going to, if she didn't push those middle laps, that the race was just going to completely get away from them. And so for her to step in when she did, how she did, set the stage for Jess and Katrina over the back third of the race.
I think one of the most difficult parts of as you get longer and longer in distance running, so races like the 10,000 to the marathon, the times that you can attempt these races are fewer and further between. So any opportunity that you have to toe the line, you have to go all in there. And that's a lot of stress and a lot of weight on your shoulders to make that happen. It's not like an 800 or a 1500 when you can take another shot a week later. This is one point on the calendar where you have to bring everything. And so this feeling afterwards that they get to experience, knowing that they gave it everything they had and they get a result.